My name is Patrick Brown, and this is the Hockey Writers Grind Line, the Red Wings Roundtable for the hockey writers. For the past 5 years, the Grind Line's been a weekly column for the hockey writers, and now we're coming to you live. We're excited for another opportunity to discuss the latest Red Wings news, rumors, and strategy with the Hockeytown faithful. You'll notice we're still shorthanded as Tony continues to chase his spot on the Red Wings taxi squad. So for now, we'll continue on the penalty kill until he can get back onto the ice with us. So with us today, we have Ian McNaughton. Ian, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm good, Pat. It's been a long week just for myself and being a Red Wings fan. So I can't wait to just have a 1 hour therapy session with all of you. It's going to be wonderful.
Well, there's plenty to talk about. That's for sure. That's
Yes.
for sure. Also with us tonight, we have Devin Little with us. Devin, how you doing? Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you. And before we get started, I want to give a quick shout out to my little sister. It's her birthday today. So
yeah.
Happy birthday, Shayla. Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Let's talk some wings.
A very happy birthday. Happy birthday. Thanks for joining us. So let's kick it off this week with some news that actually starts off the ice. Let's talk about Jimmy Howard hanging up the pads. What are your thoughts on the legacy that Jimmy has left in Detroit? And how did you take the news? Devin, you broke the story for the hockey writers. So let's start with you.
Yeah. So I consider myself a Jimmy Howard stan for sure. He, obviously last year, his last season, you'd like to see him go out on a brighter note. And obviously he received a lot of criticism over the years, sometimes warranted, sometimes not. But overall, I think that he won the Red Wings more games than he lost them. And I think that he's not going to go down in history as, one of the greats. He's, 10 years from now, you're going to ask people who Jimmy Howard was, and they're going to be like, who? But at the end of the day, I'm very happy to have been able to watch him. Growing up in Grand Rapids, I saw him plenty of times with the Griffins. He was kind of the first goaltending prospect that I ever got to kind of watch make the show. So kudos to you, Jimmy Howard. We're going to miss you. Wish you nothing but the best.
Well said, Devin. Well said. Ian, your thoughts on Jimmy hanging him up?
He was a quality goalie for many years. Like he was a goalie you could rely on, a goalie you could trust, it felt like, in big games. And then just in the last 3 years, it really fell off. Like it really went downhill in a hurry, with last year just being an abyss, which is too bad, because like Devin says, he deserves better. Like, you want to see better for what he's done for the franchise and the contributions he's put up. I thought it was really interesting. Was it a few weeks ago when Edmonton Oilers GM Ken Holland was apparently asking around and seeing about goalies, and one of those goalies was Jimmy Howard? I would have liked to have seen how that conversation went, because Holland definitely sent the "you up" text to Jimmy Howard.
And Jimmy replied, "New phone, who dis?"
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how that conversation went. No, but I mean, it was, again, too bad that it had to end the way it did. But for a good part of the early 2010, he was like a good quality goaltender that you could rely on, you can trust, and hopefully Detroit gets someone like him again. It would be nice to have that franchise cornerstone goalie that you can rely on, but it just makes you think about all the good times you had with Jimmy Howard.
All the good times we had with Howie.
It makes me feel old, honestly. Like, I know I'm preaching to the choir, but like, holy cow!
Wait, what are you calling me old? What are you trying to say? I am. It's okay. It's okay. I like it. My 2 cents on Jimmy. He was a solid goalie. He gave everybody some good memories. He played some good games. I don't think he ever quite got to that next level that we all hoped and wanted to see him get to. Some of that wasn't his fault, and some of that was bad luck. It felt like anytime he was about to turn a corner, he was an all-star. He signed a contract extension, then he would get hurt in some freak, bizarre injury where he was playing the best hockey of his career and he'd get hurt, and you couldn't help but feel for him a little bit. I think he epitomized the winged wheel. You have to tip the cap to the fact that he spent his entire career as a Red Wing, and waited his turn. He really waited his turn before he finally got the nod to be the guy. And I think he always carried himself. He carried himself with class, and enjoyed watching him. Was he Dominic Hasek or even Chris Osgood? No, but he was a solid goaltender who represented the winged wheel with integrity, and I know we all appreciate that. Any final thoughts on Jimmy before we move on to even more depressing things to talk about? And that's just the Red Wings playing.
It only gets better from here.
Yeah, it might not get better from here.
Jimmy Howard is our highlight. Oh boy.
So let's talk about that, boys. Let's talk about the rink and playing. And I hate to say it, but we've been doing these shows and we have not seen a Red Wings win in 2 shows now. Because they haven't won since before. The last one we did, we shared with the Blackhawks crew, and we all know how that went. And it's been all downhill. So there are a lot of thoughts that a lot of fans and ourselves have about this team. But Ian, I'm going to start with you. Let's talk about your Red Wings Wednesday Weekly column, kind of reviewing the week before. And sorry, Devin, you did the weekly this week, so I'm going to toss it to you. And then Dallas after that. What happened?
Well, what happened is that the tires fell off. And what's crazy to me is that I know we were talking before the show. They split the series with Carolina. They split the series with Columbus, and that we were honestly optimistic, and for good reason. Those are 2 really good teams, and except for the opening night dud, they generally looked good in the process. And so going into Chicago, you're expecting them to, at the very least, split the series. And instead, they got outscored 10-3 over 2 games. I understand why so many fans are upset right now. I know I'm pretty disappointed in their effort. I hate seeing the Red Wings lose against the Blackhawks. If you've read the weekly article, I've made that very clear. And for them to just, that's an original 6 rivalry, and you want to see them treat it as such. And they came out flat as hell. I don't know if it's Blashill not getting them pumped up for the game. I don't know if it's the leaders in the locker room not speaking up and saying, boys, we got to pick it up. And I'm not sure if it's guys like Mantha who are just not dialed in. Whatever it is, I do give them their props. They looked better in the first game against Dallas, the 2-1 loss in overtime. If you can hold Dallas to 2 goals over 65 minutes or give or take, that's pretty good. And then they fell apart again last night when they lost 7-3. Clearly, we knew this team wasn't going to be a contender this year. If you did, I think you're kidding yourself. But it's disheartening to see them play. To see their play look the way it did last year. I thought that we were kind of past that now. The whole thing with this year is that we were going to be competitive again, and they're getting killed, and that's unacceptable.
So Ian, let's toss it to you, because Devin hit on a lot of points that we want to talk about today, and we certainly will tonight. But your thoughts on why have the proverbial wheels fallen off? I know COVID's a factor, Fabry not being in the lineup's a big deal, but let's be honest, every team is dealing with that. And the Stars didn't even start their season. They were arguably maybe a little bit rusty because it was only games 3 and 4 for them.
Yep.
So Ian, your thoughts on the Red Wings out of the gate? Okay, kind of what we all hoped to see. Okay, then the wheels fell off. What's going on?
The last 4 games just been underwhelming, and I don't think you can put it on one thing. I think it's a bunch of stuff happening all together. The question really is is now the time to make changes, because we're 8 games into a 56, we're an 8th through the season. Is that when you want to make changes? You want to make changes a quarter of the way if this is the same performance? I don't have, we'll talk more about some players and some other things going on, but I don't have one thing that really stands out to me. What really bothered me was just the Sunday game against Chicago, because that game you're on NBC, it's a matinee game, but you're playing in front of a national TV audience against your biggest rival, and you stunk. You absolutely stunk, and no Red Wings fan was happy to watch that. And that was just a bad game, and it was nice to see at least Tuesday it was a little bit better, but still it was just, they stunk on national TV, and it's carried over.
Yep.
Now the Friday night game was also bad too. It wasn't just the Sunday game, but the last 4 games really have just been underwhelming altogether for a variety of reasons.
So let's talk a little cause and effect here. Okay, so we'll start with part of the cause, which is the absolute dreadful power play, to the point where when the Red Wings go on the power play, you're almost upset because they tend to get better opportunities 5-on-5 than 5-on-4. They cashed in on their 5-on-3 opportunity against Chicago, so that was good to see, but that was about it. So let's start cause and effect. Like I said, we'll start with the power play. One of the causes of the Red Wings' early season struggles. Devin, tossing it to you. What is going on with this power play?
Nothing is going on with this power play. But so the thing about their power play that is puzzling to me is that as much as we can see that it's not good, and it's definitely I guess a work in progress at best, there are teams that actually are doing way worse than the Red Wings right now when it comes to the power play. The Vegas Golden Knights are 3 spots underneath the Red Wings right now. They're clipping on 11.5% of their power plays. The Red Wings are at 14.8. Columbus is there. St. Louis is beneath them. These are all teams that plan on being in the playoffs, and they're doing worse than the Red Wings. And I guess the reason why I bring that up is to kind of contextualize things. I think that the lack of a preseason, and in the Red Wings case, the lack of just play time over the last year, is abundantly clear when it comes to the power play. And what's crazy to me is, I was talking about it last night. Their second unit looks better than their first unit. Mm-hmm. And I think, at least my thinking why that is a lot of the guys in that second unit are, like, I know Hirosi's on there, Brome's on there, Rasmussen's on there. I forget who else is on there, but they're all the guys that haven't been with the team a long time. And Hiroshi and Rasmussen, they were on the taxi squad. I think that the second unit is out there just playing. They're feeling out the situation. They're seeing what's on the ice, and they're reacting. They're just playing the game. My thinking is the first unit is thinking too much. They're too worried about this play that they've drawn up. They're too worried about being in the right position. They just need to start playing and dumb it down and stop worrying about, this guy's supposed to be here and this guy's supposed to be there. You go there, you take your shot. If the pass, I've seen too many times where Hronek shoots it right into someone's foot. I've seen too many times where Mantha passes it into someone's foot. If it's not there, don't force it. These are professional hockey players. They're the best players on the team. They know better, and they're just overthinking it. They're trying to force things. I think that they can learn something from that second unit, like I said, because that second unit is just playing. They're not thinking,
Yep.
they're just doing it. I did like what I saw towards the end of last night's game where they kind of jumbled up the power play lines. They had Bertuzzi in the middle. They had Rasmussen on the net front. They had Larkin on one flank. They had Hirose, I'm pretty sure, on the other flank. And then I'm pretty sure it was Hronek on the point. And then the other unit had kind of the other pieces all together. I'd like that. I like kind of playing around with it. Hirose looks like the real deal on the power play.
Mhm.
He's got great vision. And at some point, if something isn't working, you need to switch it up. And the most encouraging thing I saw from last night's game was that there must have been a breaking point or something, because finally they switched it up and it looked pretty good. I don't think they cashed in, but they actually were doing things. And
Now,
yeah.
so you touched on a lot of points there. A couple of things to call out. Hronek shooting into people. Like, my goodness, my brother and I were actually texting about that yesterday. So it almost seems like if there's a body, he'll find it. He'll shoot into it, and he's got a good shot, and it's kind of frustrating to watch. And on the flip side of that, seems like then they're passing when they should be shooting.
Yep.
That, Filppula, I couldn't believe he didn't pass instead of shooting it into that open net yesterday. I was surprised he didn't pass the puck. But you covered a lot. One thing that I want to call out is you did mention that the Red Wings are not last in the league in power play. That said, I can't tell you how many times I've watched a Red Wings power play this year, and I've looked up at how many shots they have on the little FSD, and then at the end of the power play, it's the exact same as it was before. So they're not even generating great chances. Ian, what do they have to do to generate better chances on the power play?
Probably just, jumble up the line, jumble up the lines a little bit more. Like I think that's what was working for them, was just, changing it up, doing something different. You're used to doing things one way. Why not do things another way? You haven't got any results through, the first 8 games. Why not do something different? I mean, not to, take away anything that Devin said. I'm not so much worried about them compared to Vegas or St. Louis. It's just, we know that the players on this team can perform better than what they have been on the power play. It's just, everybody is underwhelming on that power. I mean, the second power play unit is, performing well, but it's just altogether, it should be better. And we know they're better, and they probably know they're better. They probably know that they can be doing better than what they have been right now. So just switch things up, try something different. If it's not working, don't feel like you have to be glued to one thing. Don't feel like you have to, whether it's, shooting it into traffic or, slap pat, whatever. Just try something new, switch up the bodies every once in a while. Don't feel like you have to do anything. You have options. That's what's great about life, is you have options.
Keep them guessing. I like it. So we talked about cause. We're going to talk about effect in just a minute here. But before we do, I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us today and watching. Please take the opportunity now. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you've got a question, post it in the comments. Hit that little like button down there. We pride ourselves in bringing you the very best content, both in live and in print. And a little like goes a long way. Make sure you check out our friends over at Blackhawks Banter. Even though the Hawks are doing well right now, we want to keep tabs on them. They're always cranking out great content, not to mention the Hockey Writers Live, who touch on everything important going on in the world, right, in the hockey world right now, and sometimes have some of the biggest names in the game join us. Butchie, anybody? Butchie? Yeah. So that was fun to watch. Appreciate you guys taking time out to spend your Friday evening with little old us. We enjoy being part of your Red Wings hockey experience. Speaking of which, we talked about cause. Let's talk about effect, the coaching. At what point, if you're Steve Yzerman, do you look into a coaching change? A lot of people are starting to get loud about it. Full disclosure, my brother and I do not see eye to eye on the next step, and I will give my 2 cents in a little bit on that. But our very own Tony Wolak touched on that earlier this week and said it's time for the Red Wings to move on. Devin, we'll start with you. Is it time for the Red Wings to move on? And if they do, what's their next move?
So I'm kind of on the fence about this on this issue. I do think that it's time, but I also don't think that, for lack of better words, now is the right time, if that makes any sort of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Long story short, where I'm going with this is that I think at the end of the season, Blash's contract is up. I just don't think you renew it. I think that you look around and see that there's plenty of coaching talent out there, and it's time to get a new voice in the room. There's too many of the same mistakes being made, and I feel like if he had the answer, we would see it. And for the team, and I know we touched on it, they're missing a lot of players, and a lot of good players at that. But like you said, so are a lot of other teams, and they're adapting, and the Red Wings just aren't. They look too much like last year's team, and they're supposed to look like this year's team. I do think a change is needed. I wouldn't do it right now. Part of the reason why I wouldn't do it right now is because Dan Bylsma probably becomes the interim coach, and we just talked about the power play. I don't need that guy in charge of the whole team. I think you do it in a clean slate situation at the end of the year.
Yep. So you hit on the point. Sorry, Ian, I'll swing it to you in a minute, but I do have to remark, you hit on the point that my brother and I always get stuck on, which is Bylsma's the guy. He's not a fan of that. I'll put in my 2 cents after that. But Ian, before I say anything, your thoughts on what do you do with Blashill? When do you make a change, or do you make a change, or are you patient with the coach?
I think we're dealing with two folds here. We're dealing with, there are people like myself who been saying this should have happened, like firing him should have happened a long time, like a few years ago. Like I've walked out of games where it's like, oh, he's done after that. That was a horrible performance. He's got to be fired for that. And he hasn't been. So you're kind of dealing with that fold of it. It should have happened a while ago, but it hasn't. So here we are. And it's do you think this guy is going to, lead you to the promised land, or it's going to, help you win games when you think you're good again? I don't see it happening. I'm cool with just ripping the Band-Aid off now. Who knows? Maybe Bylsma has something different. I don't know. I'm just the type of person that's like, there's no time like the present. If you're going to do it, just do it. Which sucks, and not everybody likes to hear. But if you're going to do it, if you're going to get rid of him, just get it over with. Just wipe yourself off and call it a day. That's my feelings towards it.
So, Devin, back to you for a minute. If you're saying, I'm just curious. If you're saying not, wait, don't renew his contract, I think that's a very fair approach. What are you going to do right now mid-season? But is there a point? What if the Red Wings go on and lose 10 or 15 or something like that in a row? Is there a point where you do make a change, or would you stand pat the whole season at this point?
So my first instinct is to stand pat. And I think that there are some outside elements that I'm sure the casual fan aren't considering. I'm sure that, with COVID going on and everything, people are definitely pinching their pennies regardless of the situation. I'm sure that there's some financials involved that they wouldn't want to deal with. But yeah, I don't like losing. I mean, I used to cheer for the New England Patriots because they won a lot. Like it's so like at some point, yes, I would reach a breaking point. I don't know what that breaking point is. And I think that the other part of it is I don't care that they lose. I care that they look good while they lose. Sure. And if they continue to look like a dumpster fire over a 10-game losing streak, it's time. I can give as much faith as I want to, but I can only watch a dumpster fire so long. And I know that they're trying to reinvigorate fan interest in this team, and a dumpster fire is not going to get that done. So
my 2 cents before we move on really quick, I think it's time now. I understand the Bilesma argument. Devin, I think you hit the nail on the head, right? We just talked about how god awful the power play is, and now we're going to put him in charge of the team. So there are some question marks here, but I go with this. It's not going to get any worse. It really isn't going to get any worse with Bilesma than it is right now with Blashill, because it's about as bad as it can be.
I'm
think,
interested. I was going to say, I'm interested. Like, if we're still at the same point 2 weeks from now, like if we're still talking about the same things, poor power play, not competitive, poor line choices, that's when you just call, like, because then we're talking about the same things. We haven't improved, we haven't progressed, we're still where we left off. That's what, like, if we're still on the same topics 2 weeks later.
Are you starting to feel the room get a little warm?
Oh,
everybody's
God.
starting to feel it. Just because I'm hosting doesn't mean we can't have a hot take.
What's the temperature? What's the temperature in Phoenix right now? How hot is it down?
It's actually cold and rainy in the lower 60s, but it's about to get a lot warmer in here. Because here's what I say. You ready for this? Clean house. See ya, Blash. See ya, Bilesma. Yeah. Iserman, coach, GM, both.
So I do want to say real quick, that would be my approach. If I'm gonna get rid of Blash, I'm getting rid of the whole damn team. Whole damn coaching staff. There's no point. If we're cleaning house, we're cleaning house. Like,
I made a joke yesterday that I'd rather see Franz Nielsen as player coach right now than what's going on behind the bench.
Well, and it's kind of like what Anaheim did with Bob Murray a few years ago, where Murray got behind the bench and he's like, okay, I want to see what this locker room is really like. Like, I want to know what the vibe is with all of you players, and now it's different, obviously, with COVID. It's not the same when he was the interim 2 years ago, but it's kind of that same opportunity for Yzerman to be like, okay, I want to see what it's really like with you guys and what's wrong or what we need to do differently. And so, he can do his job as a GM better as well. Like, I don't hate that idea either. I don't think there's that can't be any worse than the Bilesma, interim coach.
Right. And look, to kind of wrap this so we can move on to actually a happier topic. I think everybody knows, whether you're calling for his head now or later. I think everybody knows a change right now isn't going to change the trajectory of this season dramatically. But I personally feel like, Blashill's lost the team. They just don't seem to have that energy that you expect. I don't think he's getting through to them anymore. And B, a little selfish here, but I feel like making a change, even if it's to Bilesma, making a change sends a message to the fans that you are doing what you need to do in order to make this team better, and not sit there and accept the status quo that has been for the last few years of Kenny Holland's tenure before we moved into the Yzerman years. That's just my opinion. I think it sends a message, and I think it's time now. But I think if you see 2-10, or I guess 2-9-1 or 2-10-1, that's when the Heat, I don't think we're going to see anything imminently, but that's when the heat really starts. So
I would look at like the next 6 weeks, next 6 weeks, like as we get closer to trade deadline. Yeah. Just throw in a little tease if something happens.
The next 48 games or so. No. So, hey, we've got plenty of doom and gloom to talk about. We could talk all night about that, but let's talk about something happy right now. Ian, you did a piece on Hronek earlier this week. Really enjoyed reading it. A happy spot. Clearly established himself as one of the top, if not the top, defenseman on this team right now. Why don't you walk us through your article a little bit with what you wrote and how Hronek's been playing when he's not shooting into people?
Yeah, if you put that aside, there's actually a lot to like about his game. I mentioned Hronek as someone who, he does take a lot of shots regardless. He's like top 30, I think, in defensemen with shots on goal. He has above 50% Corsi for percentage, which if you don't know what that means, basically the Red Wings control the puck more than 50% of the time, more than half the time when Hronek's on the ice. And he's doing all of this while starting a defensive zone almost 60% of the time. 3/5 of the time, about 58%. It's remarkable to see him, creating plays, either getting the puck out of the zone or whether it's creating offense. He's got, I think, 4 assists now. I remember writing before the article. I don't know if he got one last night. I don't think he did. But he's got 4 assists anyway. So even if he's not scoring, he's still being a play driver for others. A couple, flaws. The power play, where it felt like at the beginning of the season, he was just faking the slap pass for a while. And now I mentioned on, I think our first live after opening night, where it's like, throw a puck on net every once in a while, like mix it up, do something different. And now he's just gone completely to the other side of the pendulum, where he's just shooting pucks on the net and he's not even like trying to slap pass. So,
Yep.
And the other thing I mentioned with him, this is a picky one. It's not the end of the world. I'd like to see a takeaway every once in a while. He makes up for it offensively. It's not the end of the world because he isn't, the defensive defenseman like we've had in the past. He contributes offensively, but it's really fun watching him. One of the few bright spots on this team this year, even if he hasn't quite got the power play figured out. And I mentioned at the end of the article, jump on the bandwagon now, because this guy is going to be relied upon when the team, is going to be competing for cups, when they're going to be contending again. Like if you, don't know who Filip Hronek is, if you are unaware of him, get aware of him, because he is going to be insane when he is, on a good team.
I'll tell you, he seems to have a pretty wicked slapper too. Like,
yes,
I recall, I think it was the first game of the year on the power play, he had a pretty wide open look on a puck that came out, and though he missed the net, that shot was just insane. So he can get behind it when he wants to, and if he stops shooting it into people, that could certainly get effective, especially with some traffic in front of the net. Devin, your thoughts on Hronek early on this season?
And to that point about a shot, I think that it's kind of a mistake to have him running the point on the power play. Clearly he's from that position, just shooting it at people and not through people. I think if you put him in more of a shooting position on one of the flanks, preferably the left one, because he's a right-handed shot, he's in a shooter's position. He can use that slap shot and potentially get some goals. I like him as somebody who gets the puck on net, not somebody who shoots the puck for a tip. He's not he's not cut from the same cloth as Lidstrom in that way. I do, though, like Ian said, I mean, it's very obvious that Hronek is the best defenseman on this team. Game in and game out, he plays like 5 minutes more than the next defender on the team, and for a good reason. And honestly, to see the stats, I didn't realize it was going to be that favorable for him, to where he's starting the defensive zone so much and pushing it in the right way. I've seen him look pretty rough at times this season, but for the numbers to prove that he's doing the good things, I mean, kudos to him. But
I was gonna say the stat that like the starting the defensive zone like 58%, like 10% more than Mark Stahl, who's playing on the second line. It's amazing.
Absolutely. Like Ian said, he's definitely a bandwagon. I own him in both of my fantasy leagues, and it's because I fully expect him to kind of have that year where he becomes that league known name that, hey, this is like the guy in Detroit on the blue line. And I'm a little upset that he hasn't found the net yet. I'm sure he's more upset than I am. But I mean, kudos to him. Like I said, he's very clearly the best that this blue line has to offer.
For as bad as the defense has been to start this year and last year and beyond, it's encouraging to see players like him. Obviously, you're seeing Seider develop in Sweden right now. Was it yesterday? He scored 2 goals and then left hurt, unfortunately. But it seems like he's okay, so everybody can relax. I think he's okay. But he had 2 goals and then left the game and ended up going to the hospital But I believe the report on him is he's day to day and he's okay.
And between Hronik and Sider, the right side of the blue line is looking real good down the future.
Remember when we didn't have that right-handed shot, Ian, you were talking about before? You wanted to see him kind of creep up, and that was so coveted because we didn't have it on the power play. So it's nice to have options. It's nice to have options. All right, so I'm going to do a little shameless self-promotion here. Earlier today, I actually published a piece on Anthony Mantha and his very well-documented struggles to start out the year. I was joking, saying I was going to go full Devillano on him because for those of you, hopefully, who remember 6 years ago now or so, Devillano surprised a lot of people when he was a little overly harsh on Mantha, saying the organization was incredibly disappointed in this 20-year-old kid just because he scored 60 in juniors. I don't think anybody necessarily expected that to translate even to the AHL level. And remember, he had that leg injury. There was talk of him actually joining the team out of camp, and he ended up with that leg injury his rookie season where he'd never got the opportunity. But you know what happens this offseason? Yzerman goes out and does something he never does. Gives out I shouldn't say gives out, but signs Mantha to a 4-year contract, 5.7 annual cap hit, almost $6 million. Well earned. I mean, Mantha has played lights out last year, 16 goals in 43 games, 22 assists on top of that. Well earned. Nice job, Anthony. Where the hell did it go? I don't want to hear the excuse that Fabry's out with COVID or on the COVID protocol or anything else, because Mantha played better last year on a worse team.
It's true.
It's been very frustrating to watch. Personally, one of my favorite players on the team. I'm sure a lot of people, you cheer for him, you want him to do well, but he's just not there. There was a 2-on-1 against, I think it was Dallas on the Tuesday night game, where it was a 2-on-1, and all he had to do was skate in a little bit further. He could have shot short side. He might have had the option to pass. Instead, he just kind of glided right in, passed it right into the defender, and that was the end of the chance. He's got to move his legs. He's got to take shots. Yesterday, he took a wicked shot, ended up creating a scoring chance that ended up in the back of the net after it. He redirected. He got in front of the net, redirected off his skate, and Filppula found the open net. When he's engaged, when he's moving his skates and winning those battles, as he says, he's maybe not unstoppable, but pretty close to it. That 6'5" frame is daunting, but he hasn't done that this year, and it's been very disappointing, and it's been very well documented. I sat and I watched the media session that he had on Monday, and I couldn't help but feel bad for the guy. If I had to sit there for 10 minutes and answer questions about why I'm doing really poorly at my job right now, I would end the call pretty quick. So I will credit where credit is due. He faced the media. He answered those questions, because that's what happens when you have one of the longer contracts and you're one of the highest paid players on the team. You're expected to answer those questions. So felt bad for him, but they were not unmerited questions. His play has not been there early on this season, and I know we all hope to see much, much more, considering he's on pace for 7 goals this year right now. So, Ian, going to toss it to you first. Your thoughts on Mantha, how he's looked, and overall, what does he need to do to get going?
Hasn't been great, has it? No, I mean, I'm in Vancouver, and we're talking, I hear a lot of people talk about like Elias Pettersson struggling. He's not performing well. He's having an off start to the season. Not to compare Mantha to Petey by any means, but it kind of feels like some of the same vibe where it's like, dude struggling. He has high expectations coming into the season. The team is expected to get better. I don't. Maybe he wants a different coach too. Maybe he's just not thrilled with all the COVID protocols that they've had to go through. That might be a bit of a long shot, where this season is unlike any other for many reasons, just because of travel, who you can or can't hang out with. I don't know if that's having an impact on him too, if he's going through, because it seemed like with the Monday press conference, he wasn't quite there mentally. That's kind of the impression I got. He wasn't all there. And maybe that's just because, he's having reporters ask him, why are you performing so awfully?
Yeah.
And I don't know what he needs to do to get going. Maybe he just needs other guys to play with. Maybe he needs to be playing with, Nemesnikov. Maybe he needs to be playing with Rasmussen. I don't know what the deal is with him, but hopefully he turns it around, because it's understated how big of a piece he's expected to play within this team.
Devin, is Mantha a lost cause or what?
I don't think he's a lost cause. I think that, going back to our conversation with Jeff Blashill, like Ian kind of said, I think he could be like the guy who would really benefit from a different voice in behind the bench. And the thing about Mantha is that even when he's not doing the things he needs to do, it's frustrating because he can. Like it's not that like, oh, I mean that's Mantha. What do you expect? Like, no, it's why didn't you do that? You can do that. Like, he's not shooting. He can shoot. He's passing instead of, like, it's silly. The dude, I mean, ever since he broke in with the team, he just oozes potential. You can see what he could be if he's clicking on all cylinders. And that's why it's so frustrating, is that he is worth the $5.7 million. It's just, you don't get $5.7 million Mantha every single game. And maybe he just needs a coach to bring that out of him. And my last thought on Mantha is, I think that Ian alluded to it. I do think he's looked a lot better on the newly formed second line to have going with Nemesnikov and Ryan. I think that that's definitely something to continue and look into more. And I wouldn't be surprised if at some point they reunite the line of Larkin, Bertuzzi, and Mantha, because that line has succeeded in the past. Maybe they need some time away, and then once they reunite, they can kind of rediscover that magic. So yeah, I'm not ready to write off Mantha. That goal in Chicago where you just kind of watched the guy score was brutal. But
was that the giveaway to the old backhanded blind backhanded pass right to the tape of I don't remember which game that was, but those things are the things that drive you mad.
Yes. Yeah. And there's been a goal, I think it was the first game of the season, where, like, if he would have kept his head on a swivel and looked behind him, he would have seen the guy coming in, and he kind of was just watching the play.
And for what it's worth, I don't think he's a lost cause. I think he's going to get it going, because in the NHL, he's had in the last 3 seasons, 24 goals, 26 goals, and then 16 goals in 43 games last year. That doesn't happen by accident. Exactly. You don't just accidentally score more than 20 goals in a season. It doesn't happen by accident. So he'll get it going. What's it going to take remains to be seen, but I definitely think he'll get it going. Ian, you're a Mariners fan, right? Are you a Mariners?
I am. Yes, I am a depressing Mariners fan.
So I am just concerned. You'll appreciate this. I really hope this doesn't turn into a Richie Sexton type contract. So that's my concern there. I got to catch him off guard at least once a week, Devin, and I got him there.
You have killed Ian. Good job. How funny.
So that's my concern.
I love that, Pat. And the thing about Mantha is that I think when we all saw the deal, when we saw the $5.7 million cap hit, I think we all agreed, like, yeah, that's about right. Like that's a fair,
absolutely.
That's a fair deal to be paying for someone like Anthony Mantha. It's just he hasn't been anywhere near that. And I don't know if it's what's going on in the background this season. I don't know if he needs a coach. But he's when he's playing like Anthony Mantha, like we know him, he's worth the $5.7 million. But Yeah.
Devin, I believe you actually wrote an article that was Red Wings get maximum value from Mantha deal, and we all agree. I mean, I don't think there was anybody who disagreed with that, considering what that deal was. So, well, we wish you the best, Anthony. Let's get it together, start scoring some goals, and turn this season around. There's still time. We're not 20 games into the season yet, so let's see what he can do.
I do want to say real quickly, Ken Cal, the radio guy for the Red Wings, during preseason, he was talking a lot about how I don't know if he had a conversation with Mantha or whatever, but how he was looking for Mantha to average 5 shots a game because his shooting percentage was like what 10% or something over the course of his career. So it was like if he shoots 5 shots this game, 5 shots that game, he's going to score on one of them over that game. And so you can pencil him in for, a 56 game season. You can pencil him in for 28 goals. And he has not, he's got like 18 shots so far this season. So he's nowhere near 5 shots a game.
Ken Cal playing Moneyball.
Yeah.
I like it. He just wants to say score more. That's all that's what he wants to do.
We're now turning into the analytical podcast or the analytical show where it's just like, hey, if this dude just shoots more, or if only his Corsi could go up 5%.
I like it. I think we all might be self-proclaimed nerds, so totally okay with that. One last thing about Mantha, and we'll move on. He could potentially be credited with 2 goals this year. That one that they gave credit to Bobby Ryan because he kind of ran into the goalie that they said, I don't think I ever saw Ryan touch that puck. And that shot was taken by Mantha. So splitting hairs at this point, but he could potentially have 2 instead of 1 goal. I think no matter what, that's not enough, and that's not what we're looking for out of him. So again, best of luck to you, Anthony. We're pulling for you. Let's turn it around. All right, I know we're coming up on time here, but let's preview the week ahead here that we got tough opponents coming up. Florida, a very well coached, a very talented team. And then Tampa, the old the Iser Bolts. That's gonna be exciting as well. So
doesn't get any easier.
That it doesn't. Devin, let's start with you. What are your expectations heading into these next 4 games?
I'm expecting Tampa to run them over. So looking forward to you writing about that series, Ian. But Florida, I think just generally speaking for the rest of the season, I want to be able to expect a split series. If they can do it against Carolina and they can do it against Columbus and they can at least get a point out of the Dallas series, you'd like to see them at least have 1 game during their series with Florida where they look really good. And they haven't beaten the Panthers since October 2018. The Panthers aren't some like unbeatable club. They've kind of been in that weird purgatory for pretty much since 2018. So the fact that the Red Wings haven't beaten them in that time is a little crazy to me. I know they have Joe Quenneville. They have Alexander Barkov, Jonathan Huberdeau. They just added some really good guys as well. But that's a team that the Wings can beat. And if they're getting guys back from COVID protocol, it sounds like they might be getting them back. I'm expecting to see fingers crossed. I'm expecting to see a much better effort than we've seen over the last week.
One can only hope. Ian, what do you expect out of these next 2 series?
I'm echoing the same thing as Devin did about Tampa Bay. It shouldn't be close. There's no reason for it to be close, barring some unusual circumstance. Low key, Florida's kind of been an entertaining team to watch for myself this season, just because their goaltender, like Bobrovsky, hasn't been great, yet they still find another, way to score goals every like whether it's Barkov or Huberdeau. Aaron Ekblad, he's not a big goal scorer, but I really like him as a defenseman. He's fun to watch.
Wings could use one of him.
Like there's this is the Wing show, but it's like a bunch of teams could use a guy like Aaron Ekblad. So I think it'll be entertaining to watch Florida. They do have some deficiencies, i.e. the goaltending that I mentioned earlier.
Yep.
I think you can score on Bobrovsky. The expectation should be that you can score on Bobrovsky. I'm hoping for a split against Florida, not totally expecting it, but kind of hoping, wishful thinking. And if we take one out of the four, I'm happy.
So what are we saying? Bobrovsky's no Lankinen? Is that what we're saying?
Oh, wow.
Crazy enough that, or Ottinger. Yeah.
Yeah, or Ottinger making his first NHL start.
Wow.
God, help me.
So really quick, my expectations echo both of you. What I will say, I just want to see Thomas Greiss get a win.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
He's earned it. He's played pretty darn well. Nothing against Bernier, who's also played pretty darn well. Even yesterday wasn't his fault. The Wings were lucky to be 4-3 at one point in that game. But Greiss, I want to see him get a win. I want to see the team play well in front of him and chip away and take a lead and hold that lead, because Greiss deserves a win, and that's what I'd really like to see out of this week.
I was gonna say, I mentioned in the weekly last week, not this one, but the week before, I mentioned how Greiss is arguably an MVP candidate for this team because he's played really well when he's in net. They just haven't got the win for one reason or another, but it's not not any fault of his own.
Yep. So the situation right now with Greiss and Bernier, we started with Howard. I'm going to end with Howard. It reminds me of, I don't remember what season it was. I want to say it might've been 15-16 or 16-17. When he was like the backup and Mrazek was the starter. It was the same kind of dynamic where Howard was playing really well, and the Wings would lose 2-1 because they couldn't score. Howard was stopping pucks out of nowhere, but he couldn't do. But in Mrazek, the Red Wings would win like 5-4. Like it was one of those things.
I think I was 16-17 when they were both like equally performing well. Just for whatever reason, the team didn't perform equally well on either night.
Yeah. That seems to happen in all of Detroit sports. I seem to recall Justin Verlander coming out with an ERA of 1.95 and still losing games because the Tigers couldn't score runs. And I mean, you know what they say, the two hardest jobs in Detroit: goalie for the Red Wings, quarterback for the Lions. And, I like how you made that full circle, Devin, with Jimmy. That was good.
Especially if you're the quarterback who has to follow up Matt Stafford. Oof.
Yeah, that's true. The bar has been set high with 45,000 or some odd passing yards. That's crazy. That said, certainly want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight, spending Friday night with us. Be sure to look out for our weekly The Grind Line article that's going to come out again this Monday. We'll certainly be back here, same bat time, same bat channel next week. Looking forward to spending some starting your weekend with you. So again, subscribe. Thank you, boys, for joining tonight. It was a good time, and I hope everybody has a good weekend.